Hello! Today we're going to be talking about mean girls. If you're a girl out there, I know you've dealt with a mean girl before. I know you've encountered one. We've all encountered a girl who's just mean for no sort of reason. And so today we're going to be getting into the mind of a mean girl and opening up a little bit of a discourse as to why they exist. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
There are clever ways and not so clever ways to gossip. The clever way would be to say something like, "I'm so worried about Agnes's drinking. I genuinely hope she doesn't end up losing this job as well." The non-clever way would be to say something like, "Did you guys hear Agnes has started drinking again? Guess it's just a matter of time until she gets fired." I'll explain that more in depth later in this video, as well as female competition, jealousy, and more. But to get there, let's first take a look at how we got to where we are. The first half of this video will be based on this article, Our Grandmother's Legacy, Challenges Faced by Female Ancestors Leave Traces in Modern Women's Same-Sex Relationships, and then I'll share some of my personal experience. Throughout most of human history, women have heavily depended on their male romantic partners for the survival of not only themselves, but of their offspring. Naturally, other women were their primary competitors, as each woman wanted to secure a committed, high-earning partner, as an impoverished man meant lesser chance of them and their offspring surviving. Now, men experience competition too, but women feel especially competitive, jealous, and experience distress when it comes to looking attractive, since this is what men throughout history have valued the most in women. In other words, it wasn't just women that felt threatening, but attractive women in particular. So generally, women from a young age prefer not to be surrounded by friends who surpass them in physical appearance. And if we look at two female friends,
Oh my gosh, I've actually dealt with women like that. I've definitely dealt with women like that. I remember there was this one girl. The way she treated her friends, it was like she saw them as her mortal rivals. Like she would ask questions about whether or not other people liked them more, whether or not other people thought she was prettier, or just like it was crazy stuff. It was crazy stuff. The insecurity and the competition would always jump out, especially with men. Especially with men. She had a thing for like dating that particular friend's exes and stuff. It was crazy.
the less physically attractive friend is more likely to have a heightened romantic rivalry within the friendship. And so attractive women show a heightened preference for gay male friends, in part because they perceive gay men as more likely to provide honest and helpful romantic advice than other women. Now I want to chime in here with a quick anecdote. So once upon a time, I was living with a bunch of models, like actual working models, all incredibly gorgeous. And prior to moving in, I hadn't seen them, I just knew they were models, but I did feel intimidated. I had this preconceived notion that they just wouldn't be very nice. Well, actually, they were the nicest group of girls that I had ever lived with, and prior to that, I had lived with other, normal-looking, average-looking girls. Anyway, I can tell the full story of that another time if you're interested. Now let's get back to this article. Now, as women, we might not only be threatened by other attractive women, but also by women who signal sexual openness. This is because, in short, across cultures, men are more likely to commit infidelity and to engage in casual sex. And so when other women, dress provocatively, for example, we might respond with more hostility and rude comments than we would if that same person was dressed more conservatively. We're also less willing to introduce a woman who exhibits cues of sexual openness to our boyfriends. Now, this holds true even when it's not in person. So women who are exposed to attractive fashion models who, assume flirtatious and sexual openness, they experience heightened jealousy about their relationship and feel compelled to derogate and ostracize those models. Now, this suggests that female psychology is well designed to detect and thwart threatening same-sex rivals from undermining their partnerships. Now, although to most people today, at least in the West, losing a male partner isn't typically detrimental to our survival, the historical cost of losing a male partner, and therefore our own and our children's access to resources and survival, is still deeply ingrained in us. Whew, I kind of feel like I need some therapy after all of that. and we're only getting started. Oh, you too? Well, good thing that this video is in paid partnership with...
I will say this while she's kind of on this ad break here. You are an immoral person if your morals are only there for your benefit. You're immoral. Because then your morals will change like the wind based off of whatever is convenient for you, whatever makes you feel good. So to anybody out there that would justify a woman or a man taking part in infidelity and try and say that they have no part in the breakdown of this person's relationship, you absolutely have a part. It absolutely reflects on you, and you are absolutely going to be judged because of it, because it shows that you are moralless. You have no morals, you have no values. So again, though I don't agree with homewrecking, if your partner had discipline, it would have never taken place in the first place. Yes, this person may not have morals and may be seeking out a man who's married, but there are plenty of married men that they could seek out who would say no. And then this wouldn't happen to you specifically. That person is still going to be an immoral person, but it would have never been you who was hurt if your partner had have been a better man.
And give you help and connect with a therapist and see if it helps you.
Men inte det bra lärdom. Rätt person tar inte. Rätt person som ger en.
Across ages and cultures, you know, women, girls have been much less physically aggressive than boys and men. And this, according to this article, is because historically women did not want to risk being physically harmed, or worse, put their child at risk. However, women are equally, if not more likely, to engage in indirect aggression. So what is indirect aggression? It's basically the attempt to disrupt a person's social opportunities and relationships using tactics such as, you know, spreading rumors and gossiping and disclosing secrets and ostracism. And
Oh my gosh, that is so incredibly true. I cannot even begin. I can't. Oh my gosh. I think this is where my disconnect comes from when it comes to Mean Girls. The concept of indirect aggression. Like, no, they're not, you know, necessarily physically attacking somebody, but they go out of their way to try to ruin this person by attacking on all other fronts of their life. And I've never really conceptualized this. I'm like you'll spread rumors, like they'll be nice nasty. And to anybody out there who doesn't know what nice nasty is when somebody says something that comes off as classy or comes off as if it's in good taste, but secretly you know that they're meaning to be malicious. It goes hand in hand with a microaggression. Let me give you an example of a microaggression real quick. A microaggression is like, let's say you're a black woman and you've worn an afro for the first time to work. Somebody might come up to you, not of that race, right? And go, yeah, you've definitely tried out something new today. Yeah. So are you going to start wearing it like this to the office more often? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it definitely fits you. That's that's nice nasty. Like, that's nice nasty. That's kind of like a microaggression. That's what that is, where it's technically, if you look at the words that they're saying, they're nice. If you didn't have the tone, then the words would be pretty okay for the most part. But the tone and the eyes and the looking up and down, they're secretly trying to say, your hair is unprofessional. They're secretly trying to say, why are you wearing that hairstyle to the office? They're secretly trying to say that you're typically not put together, and that's why that hairstyle that they're already deeming to be unput together, yeah, of course it fits you because you're not put together. And I can't stand like being around people like this. For me personally, if I don't like you, goodbye. Like, I don't want to engage with their energy. I enjoy my own peace. We can act like we don't know each other. Girls who are still operating in this like survivalist mindset that this young lady, I believe Lana, is detailing, they can never avoid the nice nastiness. They can never avoid, you know, trying to socially quarter you off. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird.
And it's usually quite effective, you know, since we tend to dislike people who we have learned negative information about. Especially if that information comes from multiple sources, it's believed to be more credible. And as women, we do experience social exclusion more frequently, as well as online rumors and cyberbullying and so on. Now, while hearing all of this might make you want to sign up to therapy, and you should go to betterhelp.com/Lana, us women are also each other's biggest allies. We highly value our same-sex friendships, and we strongly desire intimacy within these relationships. And women, more so than men, experience high levels of worry and distress about potential friendship abandonment or replacement. See, historically, having strong relationships with other women also meant survival, both for oneself and for one's offspring. Women relied on midwives and, the whole it takes a village thing. We also know that social support is strongly linked to better health and increased longevity. Another thing that I found to be particularly interesting when I read this article, perhaps because I hadn't really, thought about it before that, was the part that discusses how women, relative to men, were more strongly prefer equal distributions of resources and power over unequal distributions. So for instance, among children, girls are more uncomfortable than boys when selecting group leaders. In adolescence, girls are more distressed than boys by friends surpassing them in popularity or close friendships, and we assume successful or popular females to be entitled. Popular girls are often disliked, ridiculed, ostracized, and women more often fear that their female friends' admiration will turn into envy or resentment, and so they minimize their successes to avoid coming across as proud. Now we see this desire.
If it's one thing that I've noticed about these type of girls who get jealous of their friends who are successful, is that you got to cut them off quick, because that jealousy, that competition quickly turns to copying. It's so weird to see it, because they'll look at you with these eyes. Like, they always have these eyes like, oh, I actually just saw a TikTok about this. They call it the Jafar. She's eyes like Jafar. Like you can just tell by looking at her that she has the worst intentions imaginable. They're like dead and filled with hatred. Run away from these types of friends, and you need to run away from them expeditiously.
For even distribution across the board, and here are some examples. Both women and men preferred male over female leaders. Women expect female leadership candidates to perform worse at their job and less likely to be promoted. Female employees report more support from their male than female supervisors. And there's much more. Even within sports, where competition is, the explicit goal, female athletes show less positive or friendly behaviors towards the opposing team following a match than do male athletes. So what do we seek for in our female friendships? It seems that women strongly prioritize kindness in their same-sex friendships, and compared to men, we hold higher expectations for our friends just overall, especially for trust and empathic understanding, loyalty, and commitment. And we tend to have a stronger desire to support or to provide support and reassurance to friends in need. And girls and women who don't support their friends tend to have fewer friends. And this standard for kindness is especially high for popular girls, because otherwise they might be perceived as threats. Compared to men, we are also more likely to question our friendships if they do not live up to certain standards or signs of devotion, such as friends who, cancel plans, fail to stand up for us, or disclose our secrets. So basically any cues of disloyalty. And now, touching on jealousy, girls report stronger jealousy over their friends' relationships with others, along with heightened monitoring of their friendships. And a similar pattern is observed among adults, with women feeling immense jealousy over their, best friends forming a new and potentially more intimate relationship with a same-sex peer, in part because we fear that our friend is now going to tell this new friend our secrets and potentially ruin our reputation. Now, this might all seem quite conflicting, because there are incentives to compete with other women for high.
I noticed that this is a trait amongst a very specific type of women. Women who are like this, who are in competition with their friends, all these other things, who feel very competitive towards other women. They have all these characteristics all bundled up in their one little self. You know what I mean? In their one body, they have it all bundled up. I'm noticing that I'm thinking of the same exact people. I think this is a specific type of woman that really thinks like this.
quality romantic partners, as well as incentives to form strong bonds with other women. And so ideally you would, get the benefits of male investments as well as female cooperation and support. And now this article did point out one tactic, if you will, that is sometimes used, which can be deceiving, and that was what I was talking about in the intro, namely how you appear to others. And so, for example, you can gossip in a way that appears kind and sympathetic, and that can actually get you to be more liked simply by wording it in a way that does not appear malicious. And now this article
Nice nasty.
ends with explaining how women are often more aggressive than they themselves believe that they are. We often self-deceive our vicious motivations. So in other words, we may actually be unaware of our involvement in gossip and...
No, I disagree. I don't think it's that we're unaware. I think it's because we have this culture where whenever we have a problem with somebody else, they're typically the problem. You know what I mean? Like, for example, let's take a situation in which a girl is in a relationship with a guy and he's not acting favorably. What will girls typically say in the comment section to hype her up of sorts? They'll say, yes, he's the problem. Well, he really sucks. It's not your fault. Like, you did nothing wrong. Us girls are just super loving. We just give our hearts to everybody. No. You're just as manipulative.
And because we truly believe that we are speaking out of actual concern and sympathy for our targets. Now, I will, of course, link this article below. I really recommend that you read it. It was really interesting, and I could only talk about parts of it here. Otherwise, this video would have been way too long.